My name's Clyde Bowles. The house we're in I built 42 years ago. We were within 1 mile of the eye wall of Hurricane Ian. Hit winds that were consistent for about 3 hours at 125 miles an hour. We had storm surge that came in. We had 24 inches in the house, 28 inches basically out here. We lost everything. The walls were falling apart where they got wet. The electrical wiring had water inside the cables. I mean, you couldn't ask for just one thing to be good because there wasn't anything good. And I'm thinking about everything we've lost, and it was hard, it really was. This was rising water, that's all it was. There was no currents involved, except that when everything started floating in the house, it started moving. It blew all the back end of the house porch out, and things that we had out there, I found in behind my neighbor's house, you know, across the road and down the road. We lost a lot of stuff and never did see it again. It was so devastating because during the hurricane, I had to make sure I turned the breakers off on the house to make sure we don't have a short. Everything was floating. I mean, if you pushed on it, everything over there moved and it went around a big circle out here. So you were constantly bumping into things. I was afraid I was going to cut myself, and we have enough bacteria in the water down here when something like this happens that's dangerous, so I had to be really careful. But I did turn everything off, and we lived with 3 candles inside for 8 hours. And sunrise came along, and by then the water had receded, and every time you took a step in the house with our carpet, it was going squish, squish. But you know, in the end, there were only 2 things that still worked in this house. My wife and the Franklin battery. I have never seen anything like it. When I came out in the garage to check on things, it has a blue light on the side of it. And that blue light, it never dimmed, it never got bright. It just constantly steady, and it was doing its job. It never quit working. That Franklin battery never missed a beat. The last 3 months, that battery has managed to watch what we're taking from the grid and what the solar panels are putting out and balance it against the power in the battery so that we took a minimum amount of electricity from the grid. I mean, we were producing more electricity with my system than the grid was being drawn from. I kept watching the water, and when it finally stopped rising, I noticed it was almost 2/3 of the battery was underwater and the light was still going on. You can see the line on the wall. We haven't worked out here in the garage since Hurricane Ian. We just used it for storage once it dried out. But I was amazed because that light on the side with water this high was lighting up the whole floor here. So it presented me with the ability to be just a little bit safer because there was light here. But that's because the Franklin battery never quit working. It didn't even know where there was a flood going on. That's what amazed me the most about it. You know, I've always been told you get in this world what you pay for. What I paid for that, I did get, and I'm happy with that. When I was looking out my windows at the time, trying to see where the water was at, there was enough light in the sky from thunder and lightning that you could see the surrounding area. And I was trying to track the water, but what I'd noticed was the whole street had gone black, but my house still had power. And it never stopped having power. The battery you can't turn off. It's always got the power stored, and the light was on the whole time. It was ready if I needed it for anything. A few days later, as things started drying out, we had to come over and start moving stuff and throwing stuff away, and we needed air conditioning. So I turned the system back on, and the air conditioner kicked in, and it kept us cool. Everybody else had all their windows open, and it was hot and humid because of all the moisture around and inside the house. But we were comfortable while we were doing the work that had to be done. It wasn't misery on misery, is what I'm trying to say. This has had such an effect on my life. I mean, it's hard to tell you how much value I would place on something like that.